get the distinct pleasure of getting to introduce a legend. Many of you know Alan and have known him for years around the DC area. So I actually first learned about Alan looking in the Washington Business Journal. For any of you who don't know, he's always one of the top philanthropists in DC as far as donations to local charities, national charities, and whatnot. And Alan's been in the business going back into the 1980s, right before I was born, right? But he's been running hard, has a great life story. I've gotten to hear him speak quite a few times, and going from, one-man Mass Mutual agent to the top agent at Mass Mutual. In fact, he got the Agent of the Year 18 years over the course of his career, built a huge business that touched in the retirement plan arena, benefits arena, turned around and partnered with NFP and sold off a block of his business at one point, and then is now, fully transitioned that over. He's still, a huge producer in the industry, obviously someone who's had a huge impact on a lot of people's lives, and obviously more than just the clients that he serves and has done work with. He's been somebody who's really impacted a lot of nonprofits as well that he's stayed involved with, him and his wife. He's currently living in Boca Raton. He did fly up to Bethesda to, experience our cold weather for some reason. Got 4 children and 6 grandchildren. And today he's going to talk to us about how to build our business and ultimately tell a little bit of his story and how he got to where he is now. And obviously, for those of you who are not members, this is an event that we put on to try to help our members and even non-members in the industry to help grow their businesses by hearing from the best of the best. So, Alan, I look forward to hearing you speak today. Thank you again for volunteering to do this.
Well, thanks very much. My father and mother who are deceased, my father would have enjoyed that intro and my mother would have believed it. But I can't lie very much on the phone today because Kevin Conley's on the phone. I guess Kevin's known me pretty much since I went in the business. How long you been in, Kevin? I guess you're on mute. So, okay. All right. First of all, I'm an insurance agent, a life insurance agent. I have been doing this since 1978. And, when people ask me what I do for a living, I say I'm a life insurance agent. So I'll give you a brief history about myself, and then really everybody needs to ask questions. And Carissa, do you have a cat right behind you?
I do. Yeah, she's really interested.
Carissa, you should be talking because you have a tail. I don't know. Okay, so I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, originally, right outside of there. I had a wrestling scholarship to American University. Came from a family, I would say lower middle class economically. Came down here, and right as soon as I got to college at American University, I had to work because we had no money. I had a tuition, but that was about it. So I literally worked right through at the beginning of college. And then in October of my freshman year, I started working at a bar down the street from American University. It was called Mr. Henry's. And there's still some of them around. But to make a long story short, I literally worked at Mr. Henry's, went to school, wrestled. Probably wrestled, went to school. I will give you a very quick thing. I did not graduate college, and I'm literally right now taking 2 classes. So I took 2 last semester, so I will graduate in May if I pass algebra. I think I'll pass the other test, whether so I'm going back to school and I'll finish in May. I'll actually get my degree. In any event, give or take 1972, I quit college. I had about 12 courses or 16 credits to go, and I just quit and bought the bar. So this is my first business thing. I had saved $13,000 in college because, frankly, all I did is work, wrestle, and occasionally go to school. And I ate at the bar. I did everything. So I saved up 13 G's. my uncle loaned me $5,000 for 10 days, and I had two partners that put in maybe $1,600 each. So I ended up buying this bar, and the place did fabulous. We did fabulous. And then I ended up buying it, and in 1973, you have to remember, I'm vertically challenged to begin with. In 1973, I had a Jew fro, and I had a mustache, a beard. I looked a little bit like a rat. And, you know, I guess it was a look at that time, which most of you probably weren't even alive and when I went in the insurance business. So 1973, 6 young ladies came in for lunch at Mr. Henry's, and I told the waiter, I'll take that table, because one of the girls was very, very pretty, and I wanted to meet her. So I waited on the table, did my best sales job ever. It took me 4 months for her to go out with me. She said, I think you're very nice, but your mouth is so bad. The only time I hear or see anything like the way you speak is when I read it on a bathroom wall. So finally, I got this young lady to go out with me, and then we dated for 5 years. And then finally, she said, either you sell these dumps, because I owned 3 bars by that time, and marry me, or the hell with you. So I said, don't let the door hit you on the butt on the way out. And 3 months later, I begged. And I said, okay, I'll sell the restaurants, and went in the insurance business. Now, really, everything about my insurance career is because of my wife, who's still my wife 42 years later. I'm not sure why she's still with me, but she is. She said to me the other day, you know, I would never marry you again. And I said, well, you wouldn't have an opportunity because I wouldn't ask you. So we got married, and she worked for Mass Mutual. She actually worked for Mass Mutual. The agency was at 4201 Connecticut Avenue. So in June of 1978, I knew I was going to get married in September, and I knew I was going to sell the restaurants. I started going for classes in insurance and started prospecting and stuff like that. So I was actually working at the bar still and trying to sell insurance. I got my license in July, and the first person I called was the owner of the Stroh's beer distributorship. Stroh's was a beer out of Detroit that I put in to my 3 bars. We were selling 120 kegs of beer a week. So I called on the guy that owned it, a guy named Mike Minnig. And he said, you know, interestingly, I'm about to buy quite a bit of life insurance. And I said, well, can I talk to you about it? And I was his biggest customer. So he said, yes. So I took my general agent with me because I thought he knew something about life insurance. I found out he knew nothing about life insurance. Make a long story short, Mike bought, you know, quite a bit of insurance on me from me, and we sold him some life insurance because his father had signed a note to the bank so that Mike could secure a loan to buy the beer distributorship. Okay. So I go in the insurance business, and everybody would say to me, what do you do for a living? I'd say, well, I used to own Mr. Henry's. I liked selling life insurance, but I wasn't proud of it. Okay. So I'm married maybe a year, and my wife calls me up and says, we need to go to the doctor. I think something happened. So meaning she was pregnant. So 7 months later, she calls me up. I'm in the office, and she says, are you sitting down? I said, well, it doesn't matter. At my height, if I fall down, it doesn't matter. I said, well, what's up? She said, we're having twins. So March 21st, 1980, she gives birth to our 2 daughters, Jennifer and Elizabeth, maybe about 8 o'clock at night. And I basically had stayed there. She was in labor for about 17 hours. And I tell her I'm going home, and I went out with Mike to have a couple of beers. Okay, I come home, it's 11 o'clock at night, I go to sleep, and I get a phone call around 1 in the morning, and it was Mike. He's crying. He says to me, my father was shot to death tonight after giving a speech in New Orleans. 5 guys tried to rob him, and they shot him like 15 times because he was a big guy, wouldn't give his money up. Okay, so everything happened bad that does happen when somebody dies unexpectedly. The bank called the loan. There were estate taxes to be paid because this was before the unlimited marital deduction. I brought dollars. I brought dollars to Mike's family and his mom. So about 3 months later, I'm having a beer with Mike, and he says to me, you know, Alan, every time somebody says to you, what do you do for a living? You still say, I used to own Mr. Henry's because it was such a popular bar. He said, you saved my family financially by selling us the life insurance that will keep my mother in her own home, that will pay the estate taxes on the estate, and also give me enough money to go to National Bank of Washington and pay them back for the note on the life insurance because he had bought the other bar. So he says, you got to be proud of what you do for a living. So ever since then, my life changed because of that. I love selling life insurance. I love selling it for term, I love selling it to protect the family. I love selling it for estate planning. I love selling it for accumulating money. And what I've tried to do over the last 40 years is be on the cutting edge of ideas how to sell life insurance, particularly to high net worth people. Because I learned something very, very true. Rich people and poor people both say yes or no, the same letters, yes or no. It's much more fun when somebody that's worth $3 billion says yes to me than when somebody that makes 100 grand a year says yes. So I've tried to expand my market ever since I was in the business to work with more interesting people, business people, and there's plenty of people with large networks out there, and I've been doing it ever since. It's not an easy business. None of my children are in my business. I have a son that manages money, another son that sells cars. But basically, I'm still literally 43 years later a life insurance agent. I work my butt off every day. Before COVID, I would be in the office literally at 5:45 every morning and literally work till 7 or 8 every night. COVID's changed my life quite a bit, much for the better. Now I get up at 5:30, I work out for an hour, get to the office by 8, go home 5:30 and 6. I do think Zoom will make, I'm almost 70 years old. My future, I don't want to work. I used to have 6 appointments a day that I physically saw people 6 times a day, and I never learned to have them come to my office. So I would travel literally to 6 different places a day. I'd have 2 or 3 breakfasts at the same place, maybe 2 lunches at places near each other. I learned that lawyers are great sources of referrals. They've been fabulous to me. I also learned that lawyers have very deep pockets but short arms. So if you buy them a nice meal at a restaurant, they're great. I'm very much a delegator. When I was first in the business, I hired a secretary within literally 6 months. I will say this, I've never been cheap on what we've done in our business to build our business. If I had to, you know, if you think about it, when I bought my bars, I had a note to the guys that I bought it from for $80,000. I don't know how many people are on the phone, but I imagine that nobody had a note for 80 grand to anybody when they went in the insurance business. If I was in the insurance business brand new right now, I would borrow $100,000 to get a secretary, to get somebody to do everything that I don't want to do. I literally don't know how to make a copy. I delegate everything, and I'm also a big believer in hiring slowly and firing quickly. But the good news is people that come to work with me, if they either like me or hate me, and they make up their mind very quickly about that so that they don't hang around very long. In 1981, I started my own company, the Meltzer Group, and we grew to about 40 people by 2000. We started doing benefits, 401k in this order: benefits, 401k, property casualty, homeowners. From 2001 to 2016, we aligned ourselves with NFP, and I sold my entire company in June of 2016 to NFP. At that time, we had almost 400 employees. I think we're the largest seller of benefits. We managed about 50 billion of 401k. We have our homeowners insurance is almost 35 to 40 million dollars a year of premiums for homeowners, and we have a huge property casualty division now that is doing fabulous. So now what I'm still just a life insurance agent, and that's what I spend most of my time doing. But I'm always trying to, I guess, market so that that I try to get to a company and do everything for them, everywhere from the health insurance, to 401k, to commercial. And what I do is bring in excellent people to surround myself with them to do all the work there. We're spending a lot of time now working with nonprofit, highly successful executives on the excise tax imposed by 4960. I'm not sure how many of you know about this, but basically, if highly compensated executives in nonprofits make over $1 million a year, the institution, for every million over the $1 million, they have to pay $210,000 to the government. So if you have somebody running a nonprofit, let's say he's running Innova and he's making $4 million, Innova has to write a check for $630,000 to the IRS because of the excise tax. If you have a 457F or a B, at retirement, it's going to exacerbate the problem. So we're doing a lot of what they call loan regime split dollar to get rid of those type problems. Doing a lot of work in premium financing because of low interest rates. Try to stay up to date on everything in our industry right now. I don't know if you've read about it, but there's going to be a change in the products, on the pricing of products, particularly on whole life products, that the guarantees that used to be 4% are now going to be 2%, which would mean you can put more cash in the policy with a lower death benefit. I think premiums are going to go up. Indexed universal life and guaranteed products are going to be affected, but you're probably going to see a change in those much faster than whole life. Again, I'm an insurance agent, so normally something like this, I say, any questions? If you have questions, I think I can do much better because you guys can tell me what, one of the biggest things is this: every time I meet with a prospect, anybody I'm with a client, I want them to like me. I want you to get something out of this. I hope you like me. If you don't like me, we probably will never meet on Zoom again, so I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep, and none of you are going to buy insurance from me, but I want you to get something out of this. And if you have some questions, that would be helpful. So with that, I'll open up to questions.
We have one in the chat right now. If you're on the phone and you want to ask a question, you probably have to hit *6. If you're on the computer, you can just hit the unmute button. But Nicholas Howe asked, what's the best advice you'd give for somebody who's just entering the industry right now?
Best advice, work your ass off. I'm going to tell you something, there's no substitute for sweat and working hard. You know, if you have a good marriage, you work at it. If you have good relationship with your children, you work at it. I studied so much when I was young in this business. You know, I read everything you could about products. I mean, I literally think I could tell you what segments IndexUL has for Hancock, Penn Mutual, Securian, Lincoln, you know, so, I mean, I really study the products, believe it or not, so that I can understand them. So that means working hard. If you don't work hard, it ain't gonna work. I get back to people literally almost instantaneously on email. We have a great service department here. I pay people well, but you know, really, Matthew, whoever asked that question, you got to work your ass off. I mean, it's that simple. Working.
That's great. VJ asked, he said, I remember seeing you speak or seeing you after having breakfast many mornings at Founding Farmers. I actually had breakfast with you not too long ago, I guess pre-COVID at this point. So it was a question here also when it came to business. He remembers you being the first speaker he saw you at a Holiday Inn in Rockville, Maryland. So I don't know if that's necessarily a question, but more of a comment. You know, one thing I remember you telling me at one point that you used to, if I remember correctly, lean on AALU quite a bit as far as trying to get your head around different concepts in the business planning space or estate planning space. Like, how did you further your education outside just the regular agency means?
I joined AALU a long time ago. But one of the most important things I learned very early in business, and Peter, nice to see you. I don't know why you're on this, but thank you. I never have tried to sell lawyers insurance. I tried to make lawyers want to use me as their agent for their clients. So in 1986, there was a guy named Vernon Holloman who was a fabulous agent. A guy named Marvin Sugar, there's a guy named Webb St. Clair. I knew that they were very big insurance agents in the area. So I convinced a guy named John Davies at Mass Mutual to give me $30,000 to find out how many lawyers and CPAs in Washington, D.C. give referrals to insurance agents, and who got the most and why. All right, so I paid some company to do it, and I found out that probably 84% of the lawyers and CPAs give referrals to guys like us. And the reason they did it was honesty, integrity, product knowledge, working hard, etc. And at that point, I was probably right behind Vernon. I think I was second at that time. So the next thing I did is I decided to have a seminar at the Four Seasons. And I invited maybe 300 tax and estate lawyers and CPAs. And I had a guy named Dick Covey speak. Anybody know who Dick Covey was? So Dick, Stephanie, you're saying yes. So Dick Covey was a fabulous estate planning guy that did the 5 and 5 and the crummy powers, hanging powers and stuff like that. So Covey spoke at the Four Seasons. We had about 140 lawyers and CPAs there. All I did is get up and say, look, I'm an insurance agent, a life insurance agent. We work our butts off. We work hard. We love you to think of us for referrals. And here's Dick Covey. So over the next 20 years, and we still do it, we would have 4 seminars a year at the Four Seasons. So I would say now I get a referral maybe 4 referrals a week from lawyers and CPAs. And I've tried to have relationships with them, and I work my butt off for them. Now, I will be honest, I'm now almost 70. I'm still very active in DC. I mean, that's where most of my business is. But I went down to Florida. I've made no attempt to sell a lot of insurance in Florida except health insurance. I'm not going to, pardon my language, kiss lawyers' butts anymore. I'll do it here in Washington, but I ain't going down to South Florida where there's more life insurance agents than I have here in my head and start doing this again. I'm too old for that. And frankly, I'm too busy up here. But it's a very difficult business. You know, I think the newer people now are doing a lot with assets under management, which is exactly what we did with health insurance, reoccurring revenue, 401k, reoccurring revenue, property casualty, reoccurring revenue, life insurance commissions, you know, the renewals aren't much like they used to be. But basically, I don't even know what the question was, but I hope I answered it. So
yeah, I think you did.
Other question.
Got another question from Randy Jones. He was saying that, you know, seeing as how you're a delegator and you hired staff really early in your career, what's your best advice for somebody who's getting ready to implement staff?
Randy, okay, so here's the deal. Every single Monday for 30 years, I would meet with Greg Carroll, my computer guy, Rose Gachuru, works on computers, new business, Chuck, new business, Arthur, new business, my assistant, Laura, Ina, policyholder service, Nancy, policyholder service. So there'd be about 8 people in our conference room at 7 o'clock in the morning. And we would have Outlook, and we go back 3 weeks, and we go forward 3 weeks, and we make sure that every damn thing that we were supposed to do got done, so that I didn't worry about it. So I'd go back 3 weeks and I said, well, okay, did we take care of Paul Wilner? Did we take care of John Delaney? Did we take care of Ethan Leader? Who's going to do the proposal for so-and-so? So I was very much on top of that. We do it every single Monday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's how I did it.
Thank you.
So Ryan Buck had a question. He said, you know, you mentioned staying on the cutting edge of changes in our industry to make sure you deliver value to your clients. So what are the top educational resources you use to stay on top of it, or your favorite speakers, or I'll even throw in books that we should be looking at or reading?
I read I get a magazine, Trust Estates, and I read that all the time. I meet with attorneys. I'm a member of AALU. I get a lot of information from AALU. And frankly, whoever does your brokerage, if, you know, for myself, I'm still a career agent with Mass Mutual. Nice dog, and I rely a lot on people that I do business with, like Agency One or Windsor, people like that, so that, like, literally, I knew about the 7702 tax thing right away from a guy named Anthony Mento and also Mark Schwartz from Windsor. So I want to know about things. I'm also willing to split cases. So for instance, we do a huge, I mean, last year, I think my first year commissions last year for life insurance were close to 9 million, the biggest year we ever had by far. I'm willing to split cases, like there's a guy named Julian Vivasian and Michael Rothman, who will handle doing proposals for me for premium financing. And they get a piece of the case, and they'll do the back office work for me. So I'll call up Michael, tell him what I want, and 20 minutes later, I get an illustration on premium financing. I work with NFP Executive Benefits on split dollar for the nonprofits. The split dollar for nonprofits, I don't know if you've seen what's happened there, but Dabo Sweeney bought a $5 or $6 million face amount, or the premium on his life insurance was $5 or $6 million in order to mitigate the excise tax. So I'm spending a lot of time, and I'm thank God I'm working with very, very, very wealthy clients that allow me to do this stuff. And I'm doing stuff all over the United States.
Alan, it's Kevin. I want to attest to your work ethic. I remember when we were up in Bethesda working on Democracy Boulevard. I've told Brian Buck this story before. I'd be going into the office at 6 and get there at about 6:45 in the a.m. And I'd always run into you on your way out on your first appointment, and you'd already been at the office for an hour and a half. And then I'd be leaving at about 7 o'clock at night. And Alan was on his way back to the office to regroup from his day's activities. So I know it's hard work.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I will say that if you were married to me, you'd want me at the office too.
Well, it's funny. My next comment was going to be, the one thing you didn't leave behind was your family. And I know that you made the effort to always be at your sons' and daughters' events and activities and things that were important to them in the family. And I know that you've always been very involved with fundraising activities as well, philanthropic type things. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about how that makes you the whole person.
Well, first of all, I can honestly say that I have been the best parent I can, but I probably cheated, particularly my daughters, out of a lot of time that I should have done more with them. I think my two boys, because one of my boys was into wrestling and I was too. I never missed any. I literally coached them and then would actually practice with them. And now I can honestly tell you this. I stalk my grandchildren. My granddaughter FaceTimes my wife all the time. And I give her, last night I was over the house, I said, Ella, here's my phone number. I guess you don't have it because you FaceTime Melly all the time. You don't FaceTime me. She says, Grandpa, I love you, but I adore Melly. So I will say this. When I first started doing well at my bar, my lawyer's father asked me if I gave money to charity. And frankly, our family had no money. I would like to have said that we gave money to charity, but we didn't. So he said, you need to give back to the community. And literally, I think this year, I'm working now. One, I'm very competitive. I hate losing. Two, I want to leave. Literally, I have 110 million of life insurance on me. I hope it's the worst investment I ever make. I want to make sure my children and grandchildren are in good shape financially, which they will be. And frankly, I'm giving away $3 to $4 million a year now philanthropically. I love giving money away. I think it's the best thing I can do. And it's not been a bad thing for me. I will tell you, I'm not religious, but I do believe that God knows when you try to be a decent human being. A lot of I've been very lucky that, particularly now working with nonprofits, many of them are calling me because they know me because of my philanthropy. So it's worked out very well for me. I have a son with diabetes. We give to JDRF. American University, if it wasn't for my wrestling scholarship, I wouldn't be on this phone call with you right now. So we're very involved philanthropically, and because of COVID, we're giving to charter schools, food banks, you name it, we're doing it. So, I really like giving money away. And there's so many people that are needy, it's just very important to me. One of the things now I'm doing too, and I don't want to get too touchy-feely, but there are people in my life that have been good to me and my wife. There's this woman that's helped us for 20 years. So we just wrote her a check for $100,000 and just gave it to her because, frankly, she needs it. Why should I give money to people I don't know when there's families that I do know that are wonderful to me and Amy? I'd much rather help them. And I can afford to do it, so why the hell not? You can't take money with you. I will tell you a joke, even though it's totally inappropriate to do anything like this, but I'm the old school, so there's a rabbi, a priest, and a minister talking about how they decide they're going to give money to God and how they get the money. So the priest says, I draw a circle, I throw the money up in the air, whatever lands in the circle is God, whatever outside is mine. Minister says, I do something very similar, I draw a square. Whatever's in the square is God's, whatever outside the square is mine. Rabbi says, I throw the money up in the air, whatever God wants, he takes. I can tell that joke, but nobody else can. That's why I'm in charge of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee at American University, because I think it's so important. But I will say this, the things I used to say, Kevin, I am so proper now.
Well, so am I. I'm known for that.
Well, Kevin, you and I, we both should be in jail, but what can I say? But, all right, so I don't want to take too much more of your time. Couple more questions.
So VJ actually asked if you're still involved with the study group.
With who?
Are you still involved with the study group?
Study group? No. I do stuff on my own. I have a fabulous partner, Stuart Tauber. He and I spend a lot of time together talking about cases, and I was blessed, really blessed. In 1979 or 80, the bar I owned, I was the note holder, and I would go in there, and there was a guy in the kitchen who was a good cook, and I liked him, and I convinced him to go in the insurance business. Possibly the worst salesman God ever put on the earth. I mean, I'm telling you, if he had water in the middle of the Sahara Desert and you went up to him and you hadn't had a drink in a week and he was selling water, he'd convince you why not to buy it from him. So he's terrible. So one day I said to him, if I could illustrate this, I could sell it. Next day it's on my desk. I went out and sold it. So Greg Carroll has worked for me literally since 1980. Greg's unbelievable. He knows more about insurance products. When life insurance folks, Matthew can tell you, the guy knows everything about every company's products. Very, very smart. We've been, fabulous friends. Never had a fight for 40 years. Greg makes a ridiculous amount of money. He's still literally in the office with me 8 o'clock till 7 o'clock, works 7 days a week because frankly has no friends, no life, just doing stuff. But Greg's been with me, so he's really helped me. And he's fabulous. So I really don't need to learn much because I have Greg, I have Windsor, and I have Stewart.
That's awesome. So I had one question too, just as a follow-up to that. So how did you bridge from being a life insurance agent to starting a benefits company, then a 401k company, and grow that? Did you hire people that had the specialty there, or did you start it doing it?
Great people to work for me. So basically what happened was this. Let's use Mike Minnick as an example. Mike was a life insurance client. So I would say to him, who does your health insurance? And he said, I'm not sure. You got to talk to Patrick. He's head of HR. I said, well, Mike, just tell Patrick I'm going to call, and all things being equal, I like the business. Well, I got to tell you something. If I had tried to sell them health insurance, we wouldn't have gotten it. So we hired smart people to do that. I mean, people that we have running our health insurance now, Maynard, Beth Robertson, Tom Kogan, Scott Kirsch. These people have been selling health insurance for over 30 years now. The other thing is, I don't lose employees for money. We pay people fabulously here. So we have great employees. Andrew Prevost has been with us maybe 15 years. He's done a fabulous job. We had no money in our 401k. Now we're $50 billion under management. So he's done a great job. Also, if you hire great people, get the hell out of the way, let them do it on their own. I don't micromanage it. I just, when I owned the company, every Thursday morning, I would meet at 6:30 in the morning with Andrew, 401k, Billy, property casualty, Caitlin, homeowners insurance, Greg and Stewart, life insurance, Tom Kogan, Jack Abel on health insurance. Jack Abel has been with me for 30 years. So these people all got a piece of the action. We probably, if I told you how much money the company made, it would blow your mind. I mean, we're now NFP Mid-Atlantic. We're probably going to net $68 million this year. It's unbelievable. So, and when we sold, it was probably close to 30 million. So the company's done fabulous, and most of it's reoccurring revenue.
That's great. So got another question from VJ, actually. Are you using social media at all for business?
No, just I look at porn. Other than that, nothing else.
I censor that one before we send it on the recording.
LinkedIn I'm using. Because of the pandemic, you get the list of the highest compensated nonprofit people. You can't get a hold of them now. Nobody's at their desk like it used to be. So what I did is I did LinkedIn on all these people, and I knew people that knew people. And I would call them, explain to them why I want to talk to Ryan or VJ or Carissa or somebody like that. And we've gotten great appointments by using LinkedIn. But I'm not on Facebook. They took away my Twitter account. So other than that, I really don't know anything about social media. And I'm not bragging about that. I'm just 70. I want to do things that make me happy at this point.
That's great. Well, sounds good. I think that's it for all the questions. So we did end up having 60 people turn out. So we actually got everybody who was registered. Maybe a few didn't show and other people showed up. So that's really speaks to how much of a draw you are in the industry. We really enjoy having you come out and speak, and I'm sure everybody got a lot from it. I would like everybody, if you can, to hold on here. We do have a video we're going to play. This has been we just finished a very turbulent year with COVID and NAIFA. We've been constantly trying to push out value to our members and non-members because, we've all got to adapt to this new environment together, and, who knows what 2021 brings, but legislatively, there's a lot of change that's likely to come And there's always something happening, whether it's at a local level or national level. I mean, just the 702 rule could really reshape the industry quite dramatically. And NAIFA does a huge service for our industry, being able to watch what's going on down the hill, send it out to us so we know what's going on and we can get involved and help to influence that legislation to help our clients and also protect our ability to serve them. So I do appreciate everybody being on the call. We'd love to have you be a member if you're not already. This is obviously stuff that we produce for free to get people to give back to our industry and help out people grow their businesses. But if Chris, if you could tee up the video when you get a second, we'll go ahead and play that now.
Hey, Matt, thank you and all the NAIFA leaders for all you're doing for all of us.
Thanks, Peter. Nice to see you. Thanks, Chris, for teeing that up. Again, if you are not a member, we'd love to make the ask that you go to NAIFA.org and register as a member. It's only a few dollars a month to go ahead and help protect our industry. If you are a member, we could definitely use more contributors to our political action committee as well. Keep an eye out for more events coming. We're always, again, trying to get out good speakers to help add value to your practices. So I really appreciate everybody's time and attention today. Alan, thank you so much for being so generous with your time again. Best of luck to everybody's family in the new year and your business, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.